pleasure to, thank you so much, David, thank you. To invite Neall up, Neall Ryon. I know Neal's got an ebook coming out soon. I think he's gonna, are you gonna read from that one, Neall?
Yes.
Great, so coming up. So Neall asked for a little bit longer, so that's fine, yep.
From the other side. Part three parts.
You okay with
No, I need, that's okay. Are we okay with this?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Thank you for being my radio guest. I'm now the co-host of World Poetry Cafe on Thursdays from 1 till 2. I am so blessed with wonderful poets to come and read. This poem's in 2 parts. The first part is called The Poet. The poet responds to the voice that reaches down from the other side, down through the noise and clatter of the mind, and speaks to the poet. When that voice gets shared, we call that poetry. And them that give utterance to the gift, we call them poets. The voice that speaks through the poet transforms a simple wordsmith into a profound speaker of wisdom, one who puts pen to paper so that all may hear the insight and wisdom that springs forth from the offerings of the voice. Words waft and weave in the air, emanating from the poet, expressed with the intention to share a recognition of our common humanity. The poet expounds the truths of our common problem of being half animal, full of wants and needs, as well as spirit, full of prayers and chants. In the beginning of time, the voice spoke the poem around the campfire and then retold the story painted onto walls of caves. That voice tells and retells of the epic journey of humanity repeated from eon upon eons past. The voice utters, speaking from the deepest, darkest part of our memory, beyond conscious thinking, but recognized by our collective memory. The poet voice can be understood by every human being in this world, regardless of race or color or ethnicity, gender or religious belief. The poet speaks to everyone as we all share a common memory emerging from a distant past. It is the voice that spoke to the poets who wrote the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, and Ozymandias, King of Kings. It is that voice that spoke to our forebears, and we recognize a few of their names: Ovid, Homer, Rumi, Shelley, Tagore, and untold others in every language, in every time. The poets speak to us of the common ancestry from when we became aware that life is a series of experiences, of tragedy and of joy. Poets share in a million ways about the joys and tragedies we all recognize, a tale of heartbreak and horror, joyfulness and ecstasy. Poets share the story of what it is to be human, a journey common to us all. Part 2 is called, How Dare You Write Poetry? Can you hear him? I can. He's the voice inside my head that says, how dare you write poetry? It was clear and distinct. How dare you write poetry? The voice continued, stop, this is not good for you. Interesting, I said, I thought, as I sat down to write this poem. Whose voice is that? It sounds stern like a man's voice, but whether it's father's voice or mother's voice, it really doesn't matter. They both reside inside my head, wanting to tell me where the unsafe boundaries are. Boundaries that pretend, if followed, will keep me safe, How effective are those boundaries then? This is a fallacy because it's not true. Wanting to tell me where the boundaries are, because in the end, even if we play it safe, we all die. Maybe the purpose of the voice, as primitive as they are, is to keep the monkey alive long enough so it can procreate. The goddess of procreation is the owner of that voice, heard on the inner sanctum of my mind. For a million years, that voice has urged us to survive, follow the rules and live. Here, God said, as she spattered sticky, dewy protoplasm across the cooling earth, go forth and multiply, and see what you make of that. This edict has been driving every species to procreate ever since. It is the paramount edict of existence that drives all species, keeps surviving and evolving through reproduction. Parents who are parents become parents who become parents. Changing microbially in accordance with conditions until perhaps one day we can say, God, Mother, this is what we've made of it. Every species exists because of the voices from the primitive mind, instructions to survive, to ensure continuation of the seed. Variations of these rules has been passed down century after centuries, but boundaries deter our need to grow. So why is it not safe to write poetry? Because it is not safe to stand out among the crowd. They might see my imperfections. For a hyper-narcissistic introvert like me, standing naked and unashamed before the world is the most life-threatening thing I can do. But there's another voice, a more urgent voice, a louder voice, that says, expand, grow, defy the rules, defy the boundaries, and express that voice. Express the voice that comes from the other side, that demands to speak its truth. Share the knowledge that it is time to move from animal-based rules of greed, lust, and desire for more. Time to move to awareness. Awareness that comes from the heart, supported by our emotions. Awareness that allows us to see just how difficult it is to exist as a spiritual being living in an animal body, with that voice that tells me the rules to be safe. How dare I write poetry? I do because I must, and that voice is mine.